So today we are reading in Book 2, Canto 13, In the Self of Mind. King Aswapati has moved through the heavens of the ideal, and now he's reached the special level. This is the self of mind. We've been told that for a spiritual seeker, it's possible to contact the one self that sustains everything in creation on any plane. We've seen that diagram of the mothers where she shows 12 or 13 or 14 planes of existence. So this self of mind is a plane where we can contact the self, the one self, which can be contacted on any level, from the most material to the highest. Here it can be contacted on the level of mind. And for the last few cantos, King Aswapati has been exploring the different levels of mind. Now he's come to the self of mind. I'll read a part of it and then you can ask questions. At last there came a bare, indifferent sky, where silence listened to the cosmic voice, but answered nothing to a million calls. The soul's endless question met with no response. An abrupt conclusion ended eager hope. A deep cessation in a mighty calm, a finish line on the last page of thought, and a margin and a blank of wordless peace. So King Aswapati has come to this level, a level of silence, even unresponsiveness. No? That question of his soul, it met with no response. There's no answer given. And this happens suddenly, an abrupt cessation. Cessation means stopping, an end. Everything ends suddenly in a mighty calm. It's as if there's a book, and on the last page of the book, somebody's put a line, a finish line that shows that this is the end. This is on the last page of thought. And there's a margin and a blank of wordless peace.
Why does finish?
Finish. Finish means the end in Latin. So that's what we can put
finish in English.
And in English we say finish. Yeah. There paused the climbing hierarchy of worlds. So we've seen this ladder of worlds. Asvapati has been shown that ladder of worlds from the beginning of his quest, this world stair, no? And he's been going up the stairs higher and higher and higher. But now that climbing hierarchy of higher and higher worlds stops. It's as if he's reached the top of a mountain. He stood on a wide arc of summit space, the summit, the top. And he's all alone there on the brow of this mountain of worlds, all alone with an enormous self of mind which held all life in a corner of its vasts, surrounded by this sense of a self, a being, a self of mind, which seems to hold the whole of life, of all living beings, just in a tiny little corner somewhere of its vastness. That enormous self of mind seems to be omnipotent, all-powerful, immobile, not moving, aloof, keeping at a distance. In the world which sprang from it, it took no part. It's as if the whole of the creation has been emanated from this self of mind, but it keeps itself separate. It is not taking any part in that world which has emerged from it. That world, that self of mind, gave no heed to the paeans of victory. It is not interested about the victorious songs, and it was indifferent even to its own defeats. It heard the cry of grief, but it doesn't respond, made no sign. Its gaze is impartial. It doesn't prefer this or that. It doesn't prefer evil to good or good to evil. It just gives the same value or look to everything. It saw destruction come and did not move. This self of mind seems to be an equal cause of things. It's as if it has given birth to all these things, but it doesn't prefer any of them. It sees them all equally. It seems to be a lonely seer, a watcher, an observer. It seems to be the master of its multitude of forms, all the forms of creation. It acted not, but bore all thoughts and deeds It is aware of everything that is thought or done in the universe. This is the witness, Lord, of nature's myriad acts, all the many, many things that nature does. This self witnesses them, consenting to the movement of her force, of nature's force. Whatever she does, it says, yes, it accepts. Asvapati's mind reflected this vast quietism, this inaction, this peace. He's not participating in it, he just observes and reflects it like an unruffled lake or a perfectly pure mirror. The poet tells us, this witness hush, this silent watching, is the thinker's secret base. The basis of, we could say, creative thought. Hidden in silent depths, the word is formed, the word which communicates and creates, is hidden, its source is hidden. Hidden in silent depths, the word is formed. From hidden silences, the act is born. The act is born into the voiceful mind, our mind which is so full of many voices, and into the laboring world with all its action. In secrecy wraps the seed, the eternal souls. Silence, the mystic birthplace of the soul. Secretly, the eternal plants this seed which gives birth to a unique soul. But it's all done in silence. In God's supreme, withdrawn, and timeless hush, a seeing self and potent energy met. Two things. There's that three things. God's supreme, withdrawn, and timeless hush, that silence which is the birthplace of the soul. But a seed is sown there, and then this self which has such a great power of vision, meets a powerful energy. Perhaps we can say it's the meeting point of Purusha and Prakriti. The silence knew itself, and thought took form. Self-made, from the dual power, creation rose. This is the origin of the creation, emanated by the dual power, the two in one. In the still self he lived, and it in him. This is Asvapati's experience. He lives in that still self, and it lives in him. Its mute, immemorable listening depths, its vastness and its stillness were his own. One being with it, he grew wide, powerful, free. As one who builds his own imagined scenes and loses not himself in what he sees, spectator of a drama self-conceived, he looked on the world and watched its motive thoughts with the burden of luminous prophecy in their eyes, its forces with their feet of wind and fire arisen from the dumbness in his soul. So this is an interesting description of how Asvapati experiences this state. He's a spectator, he's watching, and yet the drama which he's watching, he has conceived himself. He's looking out on the world and watching the thoughts that move it, that lead to developments there. These motive thoughts are carrying a burden of luminous prophecy in their eyes. It's as if in the eyes of those thoughts he can see something of future developments. He watches the forces of that world with their feet of wind and fire, very dynamic feet. These forces and these feet seem to have arisen from the dumbness of his own soul. All now he seemed to understand and know. Desire came not, nor any gust of will. A gust, it's a strong wind coming. There's nothing, no movement like that. The great perturbed inquirer lost his task. There's something in us which is always asking questions. But that also has fallen silent. Nothing was asked, nor wanted anymore. There he could stay. The self, the silence, one. His soul had peace. It knew the cosmic whole. this seems like a kind of fulfillment, an end, an achievement. But just at that point, when he seems to know the whole universe, something suddenly happens.
This is the state of Buddha as such.
I don't feel really qualified to give a firm answer on this, but it seems to me that from his reaction also, this is the kind of fulfillment that many seekers have been searching for, a moment of silent self, oneness, without any movement. Nothing was asked nor wanted anymore. There he could stay. He doesn't have to move. He can just be there. He has won the self, the oneness, and the silence. His soul has peace. It knew the cosmic whole. That's how Aswapati feels, that he doesn't have to move anymore. He's reached a kind of goal. And this may be the goal that perhaps the Buddhists or other people who want a kind of nirvana, a dissolution. But for Aswapati, that state is not allowed to last very long. Because suddenly a luminous finger fell on all things seen or touched or heard or felt, and showed his mind that nothing could be known. That must be reached, from which all knowledge comes. So he hasn't reached any final conclusion. He's shown that the mind cannot give him that fulfillment. To have that fulfillment, he has to reach something from which all knowledge comes. This is, I think, a special characteristic of Indian thought, the conviction that there's a kind of knowledge by which everything can be known. And now it's as if Aswapati is shown that his mind, we've been moving through the mind worlds for last 5 or 6 cantos. The mind can't give that knowledge by which everything is known. But something is there. There is something that from which all knowledge comes. But for Aswapati, this experience of this light coming and showing him that the mind can't know anything is devastating. This skeptic ray, this questioning light, disrupted, disturbed everything that seems, all these appearances of the world. It smote, it struck a strong blow at the very roots of thought and sense. These are our tools for knowledge, no? What we can think, what we can conceive with our minds, and what we can perceive with our senses. But if they are disrupted, if they are shown to be inaccessible, then what? Thought and sense have grown, have appeared in a universe of nescience, of not knowing. Thought and sense are aspiring towards a superconscient sun, a sun of illumination at a very, very high level. That's playing in shine and rain from heavenlier skies, which they, thought and sense, never can win, however high their reach. And they can't go beyond it, however keen, however sharp their probe, their investigative tools. So for us, for Patti, this has the effect of causing his mind a state of doubt. A doubt corroded even the means to think. He can't trust any of these normal tools. No? Distrust was thrown upon mind's instruments. Everything that it takes for reality's shining coin, all the things that we believe in, proved fact, fixed inference, deduction clear, firm theory, assured significance, all these kind of tools and conclusions of mind appeared as frauds upon time's credit bank, or assets valueless in truth's treasury, things without value. You like to read, Kamala?
And ignorance on an uneasy throne, travestied with a virtuous sovereignty, a figure of knowledge carved in dubious words, and tinsel thought fonts brightly inadequate.
Thank you. This state of ignorance, it may be sitting on a throne, but the throne is wobbly, it can't stay there. This ignorance seated on its uneasy throne, travestied, it's like caricatured, made a caricature of a sovereignty, of a rule which has come about purely by chance. It's just a figure of knowledge, dressed up in dubious words, doubtful words, and tinsel thought forms, brightly inadequate. Tinsel is what we dress the Christmas tree up in, no? The shiny strips of silver and gold. It's just a bright decoration. Dana, you like to read?
A laborer in the dark, dazzled by half-light. What it knew was an image in a broken glass. What it saw was real, but its sight untrue. All the ideas in its vast repertory were like the mutterings of a transient cloud that spent itself in sound and left no trace. A frail house hanging in uncertain air, the thin, ingenious web round which it moves, put out a while on the tree of the universe and gathered up into itself again, was only a trap to catch life's insect food, winged thoughts that fluttered fragile in brief light, but dead, once captured in fixed forms of mind, aims puny, but looming large in man's small scale, flickers of imagination's brilliant gauze, and cobweb wrapped leaves alive no more.
Thank you. So some wonderful imagery here, no? All the ideas in its vast repertory, the mind's vast repertory, like the mutterings of a transient cloud, a passing cloud that uses up all its energy in sound. Normally, a thundercloud should give us some rain, no? But nothing comes from this cloud. It spent itself in sound and left no trace. The constructions of the mind are like a frail house hanging in uncertain air, as if it's on a spider's web, a thin, ingenious web round which it moves. It's just been put out, the spider puts out the web from itself, no? Puts it out a while on the tree of the universe, and then gathers it up into itself again. The only function of this web is to, as a trap, to catch life's insect food. That's what the spider eats. It'll catch its all kinds of little insects that fly into its web. These are winged thoughts that flutter, fragile. They're not strong, they're easily broken. But they do flutter, they give the appearance of life in a brief light. But these winged thoughts are dead once they get caught, captured in, and are given fixed forms of mind. Some of these thoughts are aims, weak. Puny means weak. But these weak aims may seem to be very large and important and valuable to us. They loom large in man's small scale. Flickers of imagination's brilliant gauze. It's also shiny, attractive-looking material, but just flickering, something almost worthless. And beliefs that have been kept for ages and eons, but they're just wrapped up in cobwebs. They can't be alive anymore. They can't have any meaningful power. You like to read, Alexander?
The magic heart of built-up certitudes, made out of glittering dust and bright moonshine,
Thank you. So there's this figure of knowledge, but he sees the unreality of that. The thin, ingenious web spun by mind. The aims which loom large in man's small scale, but are just flickers of imagination's brilliant gauze. And they are remnants, cobweb-wrapped beliefs, alive no more. So for him, for Asvapati, this whole magic hut has been brought into existence by enchantment, built up certitudes. They look like certitudes, but in fact they are not certain at all. They're just made out of glittering dust and bright moonshine. Moonshine is synonymous with unreality. The glittering dust and bright moonshine, it shrines, it worships its image of the real. But for him, all this just collapsed into the nescience, the state of not knowing anything from which it has arisen. The only source of light is a little gleam of symbol facts that shroud, that wrap up the mystery that's lurking, hiding in their glow. And falsehoods based on hidden realities. There are some hidden realities which give some value to those falsehoods. Falsehoods that are based on hidden realities which keep them alive for a time until they fall out of time. I think that's where we'll stop for today. But if anybody has anything they like to ask, we can.
Explain from line number 76 to 78.
Would you read it aloud, please, Dana? I don't have numbers here.
A laborer in the dark, dazzled by half-light. What it knew was an image in a broken glass. What it saw was real, but its sight untrue.
Yes. So here he's talking about this figure of knowledge, no? An ignorance seated on an uneasy throne. It seems to caricature or make a mockery of some sovereignty, some power that has come about by chance, which is just a figure of knowledge wrapped up in doubtful words, dubious words. And it's wrapped up in these shiny thought forms which are brightly inadequate. They don't give any true knowledge. So this figure of knowledge, of whatever is knowing it, is a laborer in the dark, dazzled by half-light. What it knew was an image in a broken glass. I think again here by glass he means a mirror. So if the mirror is broken, the reflection it gives you is distorted. What it saw was real, but it's sight untrue. This is something we hear from Sri Aurobindo quite often, that yes, there is a reality there, but the way we are seeing it doesn't give us the reality, doesn't give us the knowledge of the reality.
Line 97, shroud, meaning of shroud.
To shroud something is to cover it with a dark cloth. So you shroud things in mystery. If you don't want people to know things, you wrap them up in misleading images and words. These are symbol facts. Maybe they have some meaning, no? But they wrap up, they hide the mystery that is lurking there, waiting perhaps to be revealed, lurking in their glow. And there's a gleam also of these falsehoods. This is interesting to me, these falsehoods which are based on hidden realities. And it's the hidden reality that gives them their right to live for a time until they can't live anymore.
At last there came a bare, indifferent sky, where silence listened to the cosmic voice, but answered nothing to a million calls. The soul's endless question met with no response. An abrupt conclusion ended eager hopes. A deep cessation in a mighty calm. A finis line on the last page of thought, and a margin and a blank of wordless peace. There paused the climbing hierarchy of worlds. He stood on a wide arc of summit space, alone with an enormous self of mind, which held all life in a corner of its vasts. Omnipotent, immobile and aloof, in the world which sprang from it, it took no part. It gave no heed to the paeans of victory. It was indifferent to its own defeats. It heard the cry of grief and made no sign. Impartial fell its gaze on evil and good. It saw destruction come and did not move. An equal cause of things, a lonely seer and master of its multitude of forms, it acted not, but bore all thoughts and deeds. The witness Lord of nature's myriad acts, consenting to the movements of her force. His mind reflected this vast quietism, this witness hush is the thinker's secret base, hidden in silent depths the word is formed. From hidden silences the act is born into the voiceful mind, the labouring world. In secrecy wraps the seed the eternal sows. Silence, the mystic birthplace of the soul. In God's supreme, withdrawn and timeless hush, a seeing self and potent energy met. The silence knew itself, and thought took form. Self-made from the dual power, creation rose. In the still self he lived, and it in him. Its mute, immemorable listening depths, its vastness and its stillness were his own. One being with it, he grew wide, powerful, free. Apart, unbound, he looked on all things done. As one who builds his own imagined scenes and loses not himself in what he sees, spectator of a drama self-conceived, he looked on the world and watched its motive thoughts with the burden of luminous prophecy in their eyes, its forces with their feet of wind and fire, arisen from the dumbness in his soul. All now he seemed to understand and know. Desire came not, nor any gust of will. The great perturbed inquirer lost his task. Nothing was asked nor wanted any more. There he could stay. The self, the silence one. His soul had peace. It knew the cosmic whole. Then suddenly a luminous finger fell on all things seen or touched or heard or felt, and showed his mind that nothing could be known. That must be reached from which all knowledge comes. The skeptic ray disrupted all that seems, and smote at the very roots of thought and sense. In a universe of nescience they have grown, aspiring towards a superconscient sun, playing in shine and rain from heavenlier skies they never can win, however high their reach, or overpass, however keen their probe. A doubt corroded even the means to think. Distrust was thrown upon mind's instruments. All that it takes for reality's shining coin, proved fact, fixed inference, deduction clear, firm theory, assured significance, appeared as frauds upon time's credit bank, or assets valueless in truth's treasury. An ignorance on an uneasy throne, travestied with a fortuitous sovereignty, a figure of knowledge garbed in dubious words and tinsel thought forms, brightly inadequate. A labourer in the dark, dazzled by half-light, what it knew was an image in a broken glass. What it saw was real, but its sight untrue. All the ideas in its vast repertory were like the mutterings of a transient cloud that spent itself in sound and left no trace. A frail house hanging in uncertain air, the thin, ingenious web round which it moves, put out a while on the tree of the universe and gathered up into itself again, was only a trap to catch life's insect food. Winged thoughts that flutter fragile in brief light, but dead once captured in fixed forms of mind. Aims puny, but looming large in man's small scale. Flickers of imagination's brilliant gauze, and cobweb-wrapped beliefs alive no more. The magic hut of built-up certitudes, made out of glittering dust and bright moonshine, in which it shrines its image of the real, collapsed into the nescience whence it rose. Only a gleam was there of symbol facts that shroud the mystery lurking in their glow, and falsehoods based on hidden realities by which they live until they fall from time.